Alright, what's going on YouTube? I don't think I need to say anything over here. Hidden Cup 4 qualifiers continue. This time, Modri versus Overtaken. Modri, one of the best, if not the best, pure Arabia or arena players out there. He's a beast in closed maps, like actual beast. He has started moving towards more open maps as well. We will see how that works out for him. He's a pretty skilled player overall in terms of mechanical skills, and he has a very, very good understanding of the game. But as I said, he mostly focused on closed maps so far. Overtaken, an Estonian player I know very, very little about, so it's sort of a mystery for me on who is actually going to be the better over here. As I said, I would lie if I said I know much about Overtaken. So let's take a look at the drafts instead. Even without looking at the map draft, I can 100% guarantee that Modri has picked Hideout. So yeah, Modri is Hideout. I haven't checked this out, I swear. But as I said, Modri is a beast on closed maps. So Hideout is the most closed map of all here. So I wasn't even having any other thought other than picking another map. So Hideout and Gold Rush, so he goes for land maps, which makes some sense because, as I said, he's a very, very good player on closed maps, and Gold Rush can also be considered sort of a closed map if you think about the fact that many players just go for fast castles. Forward Siege Workshop, Monk's Aggression could be something that works out well on that map. And Overtaken, yeah, I didn't mention this, but honestly, before looking at the draft, I was like, how would you actually play against a player that loves to play on closed maps? And the answer is probably pick Islands. And Slopes will be the other home map of Overtaken, which once again is a reasonable choice in terms of it is a good map for Feudal Age aggression. And one thing that Modri shines in is very aggressive early Castle Age plays that basically comes from his arena background. Whereas, as I said, Overtaken is, as I assume, a more standard player, but I really don't know much about this guy, so we're going to be flying in blind to this series. Vikings and Britons are the global bans over here. Italians is the snipe from Modri. Italians actually went for Modri in the first pick, so he wanted to grab that for islands, and he's going to be unable to do that. Mayans, Japanese, Ethiopians, Franks, Malay, Mongols, and Chinese were the picks for Overtaken, and he loses Ethiopians to the snipe somewhat surprisingly, and Mayans remains in his hand. In the majority of the scenarios, we have seen Mayans being sniped in such a draft, so I'm somewhat surprised why Modri has taken out Ethiopians from his opponent. Maybe he knows something that we don't. Lithuanians, Aztecs, Saracens, Khmer, Slavs, and Incas will be available for Modri to play in this one after Italians were sniped away from him. And without further ado, I think it is worth jumping into the game over here. So once again, for time conservation, so that I finish with all the round of 64 games by the time round of 32 start, I will have to sort of speed through Dark Age, but as I said many times, this is not a build order tutorial, so Dark Age is very, very standard at this level. You're not going to see anything special. I will try to keep an eye out on rushes to make sure that we don't miss anything. Anyways, Modri is going to be playing Khmer over here, a somewhat surprising civilization selection for Arabia, and many would have probably thought that Khmer will be the pick for Hideout because of its crazy boom, and that seems like it's not the case, so we're probably going to have a Scout's Mirror over here. Indeed, free on wood from Modri, and free on wood as well from Overtaken, who is playing Franks. So we're just going to see a Scout's play from both sides, and that means that I would give a slight edge to Modri over here, so we do have a little bit of a Scout Scuffle. 24 HP left for Modri, 27 for Overtaken, so he's going to be fine settling with that. Modri is going to wall his base up pretty fast over here, has a nice gold and stone at the back, and the woodland at the back as well, so Modri's got a very, very nice and comfy base over here. And now that we're getting close to Feudal Age, I think it's worth slowing things down, especially because, as I mentioned before, Capture Age needs some time until it actually slows down. Anyways, other side is going to be Overtaken in red, and the thing is that he hasn't really been walling his base. His gold mine isn't crazy good. The stone mine wasn't amazing either, but one thing that he was doing is sending out villagers for hunt, which is something I really like at this scenario. Let's see if Modri actually runs into the TC Fire over here after winning the Scout War. That actually is a pretty important win for him, because he finished off the first Scout from Overtaken, and Overtaken, it seems like he is going to go forward with 2 villagers and probably tower the berries, which makes quite a lot of sense over here. This is not an all-in tower push, but he's going to open with a Spearman, and one thing that the Khmer will not really be able to do is defend against early Scout and Spear. Because when you play with Khmer, what you play for is that you don't need the prerequisite buildings. So you don't need the barracks for a stable, and oftentimes that means that the Khmer player just plays with a standard stable. That is actually working very well on team games, for example, because then you probably don't need your own spearman. But in 1v1, that's always risky, and oftentimes pros say it is not really worth skipping barracks because you will have to end up making spears anyways, is, as I said, you will not have any defense against the spearmen of your opponent. So if your opponent is coming in with a lot of spearmen, you just have nothing that can kill them. So Scout and Spear would just kill pure Scout over here from Modri. And now that the tower is up, it's going to be pretty hard for Modri to protect his berries. In fact, he's going to have to run away. Tries to wall behind. Other side, it looks like Modri is going to loop around. That he could actually find a couple of villagers over here because these walls aren't finished yet. And Overtaken, he is not on stone anymore. Well, he wasn't on stone ever, but the idea is that it's not a full tower commitment. It's more like, okay, I'm going to tower your berries, because that's going to hate your eco pretty hard. And Modri apparently has a lot of massive parts in his eco right now, quite a lot of idols overall, so this didn't really work out as he wanted to. But in the meanwhile, Modri is going in and takes down, I think, 2 villagers at minimum, and he could still come back with those scouts to pick off 1 or 2 more, so that is actually a nice situation for him over there. And also the fact that Overtaken has 30 seconds of idle time, whereas Modri only has 9 seconds, also adds 1 villager lead. So Modri now has a nice and comfy 4 villagers lead overall, and honestly, for Khmer, it's not the end of the world that they have to transition to farming eco, because Khmer farming is crazy good. So this is still an alright situation for Modri. I didn't talk about my predictions for this series, but I would think that based on the maps, I'm going to give a free one for Modri over here in this one. And the reason why I'm saying that is because on land maps, I feel like mechanically he's a little bit stronger than Overtaken. And the problematic map could be the island. So I'm going free one with Modri, and Overtaken is going to be winning islands. In my perspective, now the scouts break in here, which could quickly turn things around. There's only 1 scout from Modri, and that's gonna be really annoying right now for him. Brings in another scout over here to defend. He just needs to hold out for a little while until he's able to potentially take down the scouts with the additional scouts coming from him. He only has 6 villagers on food, quite a lot of idols. Once again, remember, he lost his berries, which hurts quite a lot, and the Overtaken is having some nice engagements over here, falling back to the hill and then coming out once again. Still, there is free scouts over here, and one of the things that Modri can do with the Khmer farmers is indeed do things like this. By the way, Khmer villagers can jump into houses, so for Modri it would really be worth it to have a house close to this gold mine. So in case, for example, those scouts come to those villagers in the gold mine, you can just jump in there. Same thing for these villagers. The Khmer house bonus is very, very underrated, because it makes sure that you lose very, very few villagers to a scout's aggression like this. This is often the reason why Khmer are used very frequently on very open and aggressive maps, because you want to make sure that you don't lose villagers to scouts, for example, and one way to do that is to jump into houses. Anyways, now Modri is gonna have to catch up in terms of food count, because he was pretty low compared to his opponent, but he already did that. Look at this. Overtaken's food eco is also pretty cool, because he's Frank, so he's got the free horse color. But on the other hand, Modri's food eco is just going to be absolutely crazy. 420 already in terms of food. I think he's going to be beating his opponent into Castle Age over here, even with having pretty much too much gold, sort of, for him. And even though he lost his berries, it's not the end of the world. He lost like 170, about 200 food over here in these berries. And in exchange, he was still able to transition to farming eco. In fact, he's got 20 on food, so he's got a very, very heavy focus on food eco. That will probably be knights in Castle Age. In the meanwhile, Overtaken is going to expand his base a little bit over here, while he is not under a lot of pressure. And that is going to secure that gold mine even more for him. And it looks like indeed Modri is going to click into Castle Age a little earlier than Overtaken. Overtaken actually moved away a lot of villagers from gold, somewhat surprisingly. I guess he wanted to add a couple more farms. And Overtaken, in fact, is actually very, very slow into Castle Age over here. His food count looked pretty good already, but that's actually a feels bad man type of a house. I understand what Overtaken is thinking here, and it's better to be safe than sorry. So if you don't know that there is no hole here, then you just make a house there. Because this could be a hole, and that's actually very, very nice perception from Overtaken. It's better to drop a house here and then figure out that, hey, this is actually closed and I didn't need this house over here, than it is to leave it open. I have seen players losing games on leaving a 1 tile gap between the edge of the map and the forest open. Anyways, at the end of the day, Overtaken clicks up as well, but that's a 120 difference in castle age times, and that is actually pretty scary when you're up against Khmer, because the Khmer player is going to get quite a lot of knights out already with the strong eco that they have, and they will also be able to afford a pretty decent boom. So when you're already behind by 3 villagers, and you're already late into castle age, that's actually pretty bad. Modri has 2 villagers killed, only, well, not only, but 0 overall is the will kills from Overtaken. I want to credit Modri for being able to protect all his villagers. There were scouts inside his eco, but he never lost a single villager. And I didn't see him jumping into towers very frequently, or houses very frequently either. That being said, I also love how Modri is using his leftover feudal age scouts to something. He's not just chilling with them, he's not like bashing walls with them. What he's doing is looking for neutral resources. Once again, Modri's got a very, very long and pretty decent arena career. And on arena, looking for neutral resources is extremely important. It's important in every map, but on arena, it might even be more important than in other cases. So Modri is used to using his leftover scouts to get some information on key neutral resources. That's something that many high-level players don't do, however. It looks like this wanted to be a forward siege workshop here by Modri, as he knows that he's beating his opponent into castle age over here. And now Overtaken is gonna go for his own knights as well, and go double monasteries. So the thing is that in a knight versus knight fight, monastery is almost mandatory, because basically whoever converts more to knights could easily get the upper hand in a certain engagement. So really, these double monasteries might be a little bit of an overreaction from Overtaken, but the monastery concept as a concept is actually very good. Here comes Modri with his own monastery. I like that this tower is being taken down, because this kind of relieves pressure from this place. You can take the berries, and also it's not like you have to pay any attention to like making a farm over here, for example, where the tower could kill a villager. Anyways, one thing that's going to be different between these two players is that Modri is going to be booming on 3 TCs, whereas his opponent will only be on 2, and that's going to be also later than the one from Modri. So one thing that Modri is going to have to pay attention for, however, is that against Franks, a pikeman transition isn't really easy, as we have a very unbalanced eco here for Overtaken. Only 4 on wood. Okay, now he fixes that, it's 8 now, but he's very heavy on gold. It's 16 villagers that's going to be on gold. So the thing is, that as I said, if you transition to pikemen against a civ like Franks, Franks will be able to go for throwing Axemen pretty early, especially with that TC being on stone. It's not like it's impossible for Overtaken to pick up stone quite fast. So pikeman transition doesn't really work out well against Franks overall. And Modri picking up relics over here like a good arena player. And he only went for 1 monk, though. I don't think that he expected this big push over here coming in here from Overtaken. Modri does have +1 defense on his knights, and that's it. Same for Overtaken. And Modri is going to use his scouts to loop around. Spearmen coming in to protect, and I think that's going to be 2 conversions. Maybe even 3 from Overtaken. There was 1 from Modri as well, but as I said, Modri didn't have the monks. That being said, Modri actually had more time to mass his knights, but you see the difference that converted knights actually make. 1 or 2 knights getting converted is crucial. And it's also a beautiful job from Overtaken to save the low HP knights over here, and Modri just got clapped in this engagement. An absolute destruction. This is why in a knight versus knight war, you always go for monks. Because you have to be able to get a couple of conversions, and that allows you to potentially win complete fights. So let's say it's 10 versus 10 knights. If you get 2 conversions, it's suddenly 12 versus 8. So it is going to be more and more scary right now for Modri, because he's up against 16 army and he only has 2 himself. And as I said, there's going to be more monks supporting here from Overtaken. And despite the fact that Modri now has the score lead, I would say that he will soon be overtaken in that regard. I had to do this. You know I had to. If you are familiar with my channel and my style, you probably expected me to throw in this pun at some point. Anyways, now that's going to be a forward siege workshop, I assume, from Overtaken. Modri is still having a 17 villagers lead, so the boom here is crazy from our Slovenian player. However, he only is sitting on 5 army, and even though you can jump into houses with Khmer, the thing is that this army is getting very, very scary over here, and Overtaken, if he just floods you with knights, gets a couple of rams on the field, he's just going to melt your eco. So right now it might seem like, oh yeah, Modri does have a strong eco here, but the question is, are you going to be able to survive this engagement? And the disturbing thing for Modri is that he's still 7 army against 25. And here come the knights. These knights still only have +1 defense, so the upgrades are pretty bad overall for both sides, to be honest. Forging is coming in for Modri, so he's trying to get some combat upgrades for him. Also tries to bring in a couple of monks to even the odds. But it's 18 knights against 8, and Modri now goes for multiple monks. Now, truth being told, Modri's monk micro is insane, and if he survives this engagement over here, he's going to have a pretty clean 10-12 villagers lead over his opponent. So that's something that is still worth considering, that this may seem scary for Modri, but at the end of the day, if this push stalls out from Overtaken, Modri is gonna have a crazy eco behind that one. Overtaken is now playing on 3 TCs as well, and considering how much or how many villagers he has on stone, I think these villagers are already going for a castle drop potentially. And one of the things and one of the reasons why Franks are so good on Arabia is because you can really punish a defensive player for playing very, very defensive with a cheap castle. And that's something that is always worth keeping in mind. And indeed, those villagers will be dropping a castle here. Now, where are you going to drop that castle? You could make a case for something like this on this hill. Like, something like this would be ideal, but I don't think that Overtaken will be able to get that up. But that would control that gold mine. He also has a lot of outposts over here, so he wants to make sure, if you take a look at his POV, that Modri isn't sneaking out of his base. And, well, that's an ambitious and aggressive castle over here. The typical castle to which you say that if it doesn't go up, then Overtaken has lost the game. The question is if it's actually gonna go up though, because it's 22 knights against 20 now. Modri's gonna take this fight, but that's already 50%. So I feel like this castle is going up here. I have a feeling that this goes up, because Modri isn't really willing to contest that, and at the end of the day now Overtaken is only behind by 5 villagers, so Modri's eco lead has sort of vanished, and now there is probably going to be a couple of throwing axemen as well in the party, because the throwing axemen would be a pretty nice addition to this army. Pretty fast training, you would actually be able to get quite a lot of them on the field rather fast, and they would help you out quite a bit when it comes to fighting as those knights. Modri is still just playing very, very defensive over here. But, oh, here come the monks. As I said, I feel like Modri wants to take one decisive engagement. And that may soon come, as now we're gonna have a couple of conversions left and right. And at the end of the day, the monks are going down from Overtaken. Modri is going to lose that TC, that's no question. He's heavy on stone, which means that he wants to drop another castle, but his opponent, Overtaken, is also very, very heavy on stone, so there's a chance that the next castle that Overtaken is gonna make is gonna be right where that TC went down. It's going to be ambitious, but based on what we have seen from Overtaken right now, I feel like he's not afraid to be ambitious. He's got +1/+2 on his knights, +2/+2 will be there for Modri in a moment, takes down those mangonels, that's actually a beautiful move from him, also intercepts a villager, once again a nice one, and Overtaken now could technically drop that other castle, we'll see what he decides upon. The ecos are now completely even, but Modri takes over in terms of knight numbers, so as I said, I feel like Modri is waiting for one decisive engagement. The tricky thing is where are you going to take that fight, because there's a castle over here, and now here come the knights. I think Modri just wants to dive beneath that castle. Nice quick walls over there from Overtaken, and Modri is trying to lead houses to get past those gates, but that's not gonna happen. Loses a knight to conversion. Well, actually, Overtaken should just delete that before it gets converted back. Yeah, it got converted back. Overtaken should have just deleted that, and that would have been perfectly fine. And now it looks like all the knights will be heading to the right side, but this is dangerous for Overtaken. He's got 23 knights, and Modri's got 40. So Modri could actually take a good fight against this army over here. He's got better upgrades as well, +2/+2, and +2 attack is not in there for Overtaken just yet. Modri has enough knights on this screen to take this fight, and I think he kind of has to. Also killing a couple of villagers over there. Overtaken is getting a couple of stables in the corner to start spamming in more knights. But here's the fight. Overtaken, I think, does have the hill. And more importantly, Modri doesn't have all the knights he has. over here, but now the monks arrive and Overtaken is gonna have to run away. Another castle was attempted here for a brief moment by Overtaken, but then he changes his mind and goes for a more defensive orientated castle. And yeah, now Modri is pushing this one out. Now the tricky thing is that you have a bunch of... you have a castle in your face, and it's something that you're gonna have to deal with. That being said, if Modri is able to clean this army up here, suddenly he's gonna have a lot of knights that will be able to just run into the base of Overtaken. Overtaken actually picked up 3 relics during this time, which also helps as well. Now takes another good heal over here, and once again, Modri's army is separated from each other. And that's not something that you want. Look at that. He's outnumbered in this fight pretty badly, because even though he had the overall numbers advantage, his army is fighting in small pieces. So, like, these knights are beating up an outpost. Now these guys got clapped because these knights didn't help them out. If Modri just used his entire army as one big blob of knights, he could have won that fight, but he didn't. And his little small armies just got absolutely stomped by one overwhelming blob of knights, and now it's once again 25 knights against 16, and there's a siege workshop coming in here. Knights are on the way as well from Overtaken, and even though Modri still has the eco lead, I feel like he needed a decisive win over here, otherwise he would be in huge trouble, and he is in huge trouble right now because of that, because there is still a castle on his face, and the only way he seemed like he's gonna come back into this game is if he can actually just ignore that castle, defeat the Overtaken's army on the field, and then able to pressure Overtaken's eco. But Overtaken has lost 5 villagers in this entire time. No, wait, he lost 18. And Overtaken only killed 5 villas, by the way, which is surprising. Now that number is rising really fast, but up until this point, Modri did a very, very good job protecting his villas. Now the vill KD is going to even out. Still, Modri killed 18 villas, quite a lot of them were here on the front line, so very, very small pushes were made only by Modri to the base of Overtaken. And here comes another castle from our Estonian player pulling a lot of villagers, and that castle would pretty much cut Modri's base to half. And you already have knights killing the eco. Modri is dropping to 89 villagers, so once again Overtaken is now having the better economy. Also, it's a lot more polished and like a lot more consistent. Now Overtaken is going to lose a couple of villas to these knights. I think Modri knows exactly there is a castle coming in here, but still, enough villagers survive to potentially attempt that castle over there, or Overtaken can just pull more, and it seems like he's going to reposition that castle potentially over here on this hill, which would absolutely shatter this part of Modri's base, who's getting Botkin Arrow, which I assume is there to just buff the firepower of the town centers against those knights. And Modri selling a lot of stone here, so he's also starving for gold, I believe. Indeed, he's got 9 on gold, because this gold mine is getting raided, this gold mine is running out, so he's selling stone to get some gold for himself. Here comes another castle by Overtaken, and the villager count is still even, knight numbers are still pretty close as well, but the map position is what is concerning now for Modri. Now, he's going to kill quite a lot of villagers over here from Overtaken, so really Overtaken had a lot of villager losses attempting these castles, but as I said, I see Modri currently being unable to deal with these castles in his face, and Overtaken is just going to keep adding castle after castle and just absolutely cornering his opponent in here. Like, currently this siege workshop is gonna go down, but now Overtaken dives in here to take this TC down. In fact, he could just kill the villagers that are standing beneath it, but he is not doing that right now. He could also get fletching for himself, because that would actually increase the range of his castles and make them even more annoying. So that could be something as well. Modri is gonna go for defensive castle on the right side. Villager count is still absolutely even between the two players, but you can't deny that Modri's eco was raided so hard. Look at this, 4 hours of villager idle time as compared to 1 hour 26 minutes. Now, Overtaken also has a sort of messy eco, but he's not getting pushed. And that is a massive difference between these two players over here, that Overtaken now is going to mix in light cavalry, but more importantly, his eco is completely untouched, whereas Modri is constantly forced to just defend and just survive the raids, replenish the villagers, whereas Overtaken is barely losing anything. He's slowly expanding his base, really just waiting until he can actually drop another castle, because he could drop a castle soon, once again, but where is he gonna drop that castle, I have no idea. The army numbers are still pretty close. In fact, army value is extremely close now. Modri is going to go for multiple barracks, and look at that castle from Overtaken. He just wants to full castle rush his opponent over here. Now, this is more than ambitious over here. I think that's just, that's the right pathfinding. It's not the fault of the game. It's the fault of Overtaken not noticing that the shortest path here is all the way around. But still, not really going to get punished for that because Modri is down to 16 knights. And another castle here would pretty much cripple this part of Modri's food eco. Modri's got like 13 villagers on food. And this part of the food eco is already getting raided pretty hard. Right side is secure for now, and Modri is attempting a counterattack. But there is already a castle in here to pretty much deny that one. And we also shouldn't forget that Modri is very, very low on gold. He's got 8 villagers on gold, and he's about to lose this gold mine as well. So the main problem that Modri is going to be having is that he will kind of have to play with trash units. But as I said, if you play with the pikemen here, Franks will mix in throwing axemen, and they have a very, very easy and clean transition to that. It seems like we'll have pikemen being made here by Overtaken. And he will also get a couple of his villagers killed inside his base by the raids, but this counterattack is not something that compensates you for all the damage that has been caused to your eco. And it seems like the knights indeed will go down. 3 relics are also there for Overtaken, 127 vills against 108. But the army numbers are still surprisingly close over here. And that's something that's worth monitoring, that as much damage as Modri has taken, he's not completely dead. Because it seems like Overtaken is struggling a little bit finishing him off. He might be a little too low on food, to be honest. Like, he has a lot of villagers on food, quite a lot on gold as well, but a little too low on food. If he had a bit more food income, he would be able to just keep spamming knights over here and just absolutely cripple Modri's eco. And right now, he's only 1 on stone, so we're not going to see more castles, at least not in the near future. And we're most likely going to see battering rams over here. He could also think about buying himself up to Imperial, getting a few traps out and starting to trap down buildings over here. Modri is in no position to click into Imperial anytime soon. He's trying to hold on to this one, expanding out here with a siege workshop. But still, the core of his base is just pretty much absolutely destroyed. As I said, I feel like fletching would make a lot of sense here for Overtaken, maybe even Botkin Arrow, because that would increase the range of those castles and that would be immensely helpful. Still, 160 population against 130, and that is something that shouldn't be overlooked over here. And this villager might even... No, this villager is not going to get killed by the wolf, I hope. Light Cav being teched into by Modri. He still has 34 Khmer villagers working for him in terms of food income, so technically he could try raiding his way back into the game here with light cavalry. So as I said, I feel like Overtaken is struggling a little bit finishing off his opponent here. He's floating 2k gold. Now comes an offensive market right in the face of Modri. And I saw scale mail at least from Overtaken. No +2 defense for the pikeman, and also he stopped producing pikemen for quite a long time. Now he's going to try and sneak up some stables over here. He may have noticed, or at least based on this outpost, he will probably notice that Modri is actually sneaking something up over here as well. Indeed, now he sees the siege workshop and he will know, oh hey, my opponent actually wants to drop stables in my face, so he's gonna be able to react to this one. As I said, Overtaken is actually pretty close to clicking into Imperial here, so he could easily buy himself up. He's got the castles, so all he needs to do is just buy 400 food and go up. And when this TC goes down, the food eco for Modri is going to be even more exposed. And now that Overtaken has 11 villagers on stone, I wouldn't be surprised to see the next castle being over here. And Modri is really cornered in here right now. That's the bigger problem that he's facing. Overtaken on the way to Imperial. As I said, there is some counter raids coming in here from Modri, and Overtaken does have holes on his walls. So that's going to be tough for him to defend against unless he does some crazy quick walls. But in the meanwhile, Modri actually walled in these stables, or at least he attempted to do so, to prevent knights from coming out. And Modri is now getting a lot of those pikemen on the field. I think if Overtaken goes throwing axemen, this is game over for Modri. Modri also wants to imp here, as Overtaken goes for a couple of house walls to prevent the rams from bashing through. And here come the throwing axemen, or at least one of them. And there should be throwing axemen made on these other castles as well, because they would just absolutely smash the pikemen. Indeed, a couple of them are already on the field, as chainmail is on the way as well for Overtaken. And in the meanwhile, more importantly, look at all those nitrates coming in. 8 hours of combined idle time for Modri's Voyagers. That's absolutely amazing. In a negative sense, obviously. So, 8 hours of idle time. It's not Modri's fault, it's about all the raids that he's facing. That's the problem that he's having right now. 8 hours of will idle time is crazy. So, Overtaken also had quite a lot of Voyager idle time, so 2 hours, 26 minutes isn't fancy either. But 8 hours is absolutely crazy. And now Modri is dropping in population really fast, because now that the pikemen are running out here, and the Ram taking out the TC, eventually this part of Modri's base is going to fall, and then suddenly like 10-15 Voyagers will die, and Modri's food eco is gonna collapse, and most importantly, as I said, on the way to Imperial is Overtaken. Now he's gonna get a couple of light cab into his base, which is far from ideal. Goes for pikeman defense, but yeah, this is getting a more and more concerning push over here. He could really divert a couple of throwing axemen to try and clean this one up, but I feel like Overtaken is dying slowly over here on this side, but Modri is dying faster. So that's the thing, Modri is just losing Voyager after Voyager. Voyager KD is also telling the story. Overtaken killed 116 Voyagers, Modri only killed 60. That being said, that's actually a pretty scary light cab raid. So really, Overtaken has to be careful because, as I said, he is struggling to close out games. That one thing that former or current Arena players are amazing in is just grinding games out that are very long, very grindy. So Winchester, for example, is a prime example of that. Stark is another example. All of these players are just able to turtle as long as they are able to raid their way back into the game or so. So Overtaken has to be careful here, because Modri is not going to give up on this easily, and maybe he just wants to raid his way back into the game. Now, this is still a massively uphill battle for Modri, especially now that that castle is going down, and now there is siege weapons, like actual good siege weapons for Overtaken. He can just target TCs, and when the TCs go down, the Voyagers will start dying to the Knights. Now, throwing X-Men are running in here as well. Halberdier on the way. I like this defensive castle from Overtaken. That's going to help a lot, protecting his farming eco, as he's sort of expanding to this side. Look at this. Look at this. He's actually taking the space that Modri has been using for his farms, even getting more stone. He dropped the castle somewhere else as well. I don't know where exactly. I think that's the castle that he spent his stone on. But he still has an awful lot of stone in the bank, so he could drop like 2 or 3 more castles pretty easily. And as I said, Trebs are just taking out buildings really fast over here. And Modri is doing damage with his push, but it is not enough damage to compensate for all the damage that has been caused to his own eco. That's the main problem that he's facing right now. So he still has a rather untouched eco here on the right side, but I feel like that's just a matter of time until Modri or Overtaken is going to just steamroll that with 50 army against 14, 5,000 army value against 720. And now that, as I said, there is traps here, so the traps can just take down town centers, and that is going to open up everything for the Knights. In fact, once again, if I wanted to criticize something from Overtaken, I would say that he's a little bit too slow with his push. That's actually a beautiful castle to protect you against this one, although you may want to drop a gate or some stone walls in front to prevent rams from popping out and just quickly destroying that castle. But still, I would think that this castle is going to protect you from basically any push that is coming from this side, pikeman, light cab, whatsoever. And indeed, Modri now taps out. He realizes that this game is just going nowhere. He's at 83 Voyagers, and look at all this carnage. At the end of the day, 169 Voyagers killed by Overtaken, lost 76. Wasn't a perfectly clean game from Overtaken. I firmly believe that he was struggling to close this game out, but Modri has taken so much damage that it was just impossible for him to turn back, and the castle is from everywhere. We have seen that in Arena as well, so Modri is not unfamiliar with the concept of using the cheap castles to secure a lot of map control, and just pushing forward inch by inch with castle drops after castle drops, but it seems like he wasn't necessarily prepared for that, and more importantly, the two key fights in this game. The one where he lost like 4 or 5 knights to conversions here in the middle, and the other one where he tried to break out with his knights, but those were split into smaller groups, and those smaller groups were annihilated individually, as compared to using them as one big mass of knights, and potentially trying to take a decisive engagement against the opponent's knights, and then pushing into the eco to kind of relieve the pressure from the front of his base. Anyways, one of the better games of this qualifier is Overtaken. takes game number 1 over here. And we will take a look at the draft. So Modri will lose Khmer, and Overtaken is going to lose Franks. And more importantly, Overtaken is going to have Islands and Slopes as home maps, but that's not the one that we're going to play. We are playing Modri's home map, and I am 100% sure that that's Hideout. It has to be Hideout. If it's Modri, it has to be Hideout. And believe it or not, it's Hideout. So, as I said before, Khmer is definitely one of the better civilizations of Hideout. This is from the previous lobby, so don't get confused. This is actually from the previous lobby, and it's not actually a GG in this game. So he has used up Khmer, which is one of the stronger civilizations on this map, and he will be playing with Slavs. Slavs are also pretty versatile for Monk and Siege pushes, or just the boom. There is a lot of options with Slavs on this map, a lot to like about that. Other side, Mongols for Overtaken, something that's a little bit unconventional, I would say, but it can be a reasonable civilization overall. The thing I don't like about Mongols is that it is very, very heavy towards the Mangudai play, and before that they're not amazing in anything. And if Slavs can push them before the Mangudai arrive, that could be very, very tough for the Mongols to handle. That being said, in post-Imperial, I would probably prefer the Mongols, although it really depends on micro and execution as well. We'll see what Overtaken has on his mind. So, with that, I would think that once again, since it's Dark Age, especially on a closed map, it is very likely that we're just going to speed through this. So, as you may have gotten used to, the deer is on the outside, and Modri is doing something that a lot of players do not do anymore. Delete parts of his wall to push in the deer. You can actually keep your walls open, or keep your gate open with a sheep, and you could just push in the deer that way. The thing here is that, as you see, if you open up your walls, your opponent will actually try running into your base, and that could be troublesome. Modri is like, okay, I'm gonna revolt this, but these small things actually do decide, or could be very, very decisive, and it looks like Overtaken is going to surprise us a little bit. He's not pushing in the deer, he's milling the deer, and it seems like we're going to have a Man-at-Arms play. Huh. Man-at-Arms towers from Overtaken, once again a rather aggressive approach from him, but this is not something that Modri is going to expect, to be honest. Modri's scout is also over here, taking the longer path. He will see the fuel age, so he will know something is coming his way, but I really like the fact that he's actually milling the huntables as well. He also milled deer, but here comes the Man-at-Arms. It's only 2 vultures being pulled though. However, the problem that Modri is facing is that in Dark Age, you can't actually make towers. So, believe it or not, especially after the Palisade Wall nerf, Dark Age Palisade Walls are only 150 HP now, so it's actually pretty easy to get through them with Man-at-Arms, you will see in a moment. And Modri is gonna have to make contingency walls. Normally, I'm not a big fan of tower rushes on Hideout, because I feel like by the time you are actually able to get a couple of towers up, your opponent will be up to Castle Age, and just mango those down. But what I could think is going to be the plan for Overtaken now that he's going for towers, is that this is going to be pretty much a tower rush into a Mangudai play eventually. He's adding villagers to stone, so he wants to continue with towers, and now Modri is going to have to mix in Loom over here. Man-at-Arms are through the walls, and now Modri could actually counter tower, goes for a market. The barrels will be lost over here, which is a huge, huge, huge loss when it comes to the food eco that is required for Castle Age. And as you see, Modri doesn't have the food eco to go up, so that probably means that he's gonna have to buy himself up to Castle. As long as he is not up to Castle Age, he's not gonna have a real defense against the towers. He can make like 1 defensive tower, but that's basically it, and it's not like his stone is safe to be able to easily access it. It's actually a pretty decent push from Overtaken, who's waiting for the stone to pile up. He's got 3 on stone. And then what he will probably do is drop another tower somewhere around over here. Once again, food eco denial is what he's trying to play. And as you see, it works out pretty nicely. Eventually, Modri is going to be able to buy himself up to Castle Age here. But the thing is that the damage that the Overtaken is causing to Modri's eco already is actually pretty considerable. And indeed, there is the other tower. It's actually outside of the range of this tower, which is far from ideal. But you have men-at-arms supporting, so this shouldn't really be a big deal. Overtaken is going to be able to get that tower up as well. And you see that Modri actually sold his stone to go up. That's a risky decision here. And I feel like I'm not necessarily a fan of that. You could have just waited a little bit more and mined some gold and buy yourself up that way. He might actually buy some stone now. But the thing is that now that you don't have stone, you can't counter tower. And Modri's eco isn't going to look great. And the thing is that in order to be able to really deal with these towers, you need a siege workshop and mangonels, potentially, but you still need to wait 1.5 minutes until you get up to casting. That's a long time. It's a very, very long time, especially if Overtaken is able to get through the walls. He's getting a stable up here, and one thing that I would like to point out is that there is not a lot of villagers right next to this TC, and indeed Overtaken sees that, and he's hitting that villager diagonally. That was actually very, very nice from Overtaken. He realized that his opponent doesn't have villagers close to the TC that he can garrison, which means that he can just pull the scout, run past and try to deny this second layering over here. Now has to run back. Modri will try to jump into the TC over here as a spearman comes out as well. Overtaken's push is getting nowhere, to be honest. Like, this is why I'm not a big fan of tower rushes on hideout. I just feel like, yeah, it's nice and everything, but are you getting anywhere with it? And I don't think that the answer is yes here. Like, Modri has stalled this push out very, very nicely over here, as more scouts are coming in. Now, the thing is that if there is 2 scouts over here and a spearman, Modri is gonna have a tough time holding on against this one, because even though there could be mangonels, the problem that Modri is going to be facing is that there will be scouts to take down those mangonels. And here's the siege workshop. Monks will also be killed by scouts, so this is still tricky. And one thing that I would like to emphasize is that Modri's eco is very, very messy. So 0 on food, 6 on gold, 12 on wood, whereas his opponent has been silently making a pretty decent food eco over here. This is pretty much like a men-at-arms into eco and a couple of scouts type of a build. So, because he didn't have to invest into more army after the first couple of men-at-arms, he was able to afford the eco upgrades, like Bitaxe and Horse Color. Especially Horse Color helps quite a bit. And just like in the case of a Scouts build, where your food eco is very well developed, that is the case over here as well. So he already has 15, 16 on food, and to be honest, his castlage time isn't going to be that bad considering the circumstances. In fact, he's going to have a good castlage time if you consider the fact that, like, Modri was much, much faster to castlage than him, but Modri wasn't able to do anything with that castlage right now. Gets a spearman out to fight this one. Now, these are only feudal age towers, so they actually get destroyed by mangonels very, very easily. In the meanwhile, Overtaken is trying to pick off villagers. He actually killed 0 whales. One thing that we didn't notice is that apparently Modri lost a villager to either a wolf or more likely boar. Because if you take a look at this, there is 1 villager lost from Modri, but his opponent didn't kill anything, which means that Modri lost that villager to... like, he either deleted it accidentally, which would be a big disaster, or he lost it to a boar. Anyways, look at this. There is neutral huntables out here, and Overtaken is taking that. It actually helps his castlage time as well quite a bit. And he's gonna have 2 stables here, but I would think that now that he goes up, yes, he's rushing up a blacksmith because he was missing the other building. Now that he's going up, he could consider castle dropping Modri here. Because the thing is that these mangonels are pushing out, but now it would be a perfect time to just consider dropping a castle somewhere around over here and pushing on with Mangodai, because Modri isn't really prepared to face Mangodai right now. And there will be double stables here. Eventually it's just scouts, but I think that a couple of knights could also occur. Right now this is all about keeping those mangonels away from this tower, because if you can keep this tower up, it's a completely different scenario than compared to what happens when you lose them. There is also a scorpion here. Mangonels actually lose. Oh, that's so bad for Modri. And now the men-at-arms could just kill the pikemen, which is even more important, because if the spearmen go down, then the mangonels will be killed by the scouts. It seems like the tower is slowly dying though, so I think it's gonna go down before Overtaken reaches castle. So what I wanted to say is that if the tower stays up, you can actually drop a castle here if you're Overtaken. If not, then... well, you may need to go for a much more passive castle over here. Scouts aren't great at sniping siege weapons, that's the thing. So their base attack is actually pretty bad for that. Knights are amazing at that, but scouts are actually pretty poor. Anyways, Modri's eco is still very, very messy. And that's the thing. Look at the TC idle time. 5 minutes for Modri, 7 seconds for his opponent. So the thing is that Modri, even though he only lost 2 Voyagers in this entire game, the fact that he has had 5 minutes of TC idle time is basically... That's like 12 Voyagers? Yeah, I think that's 12 Voyagers. He's behind by 11 Voyagers over here, just because he had a TC idle time. And the reason why he had TC idle time is because he doesn't have food eco, because of the towers. And now he should be able to drop farms, but he's not doing it, which is probably because he's microing his stuff over here. But he needs to drop farms really fast over here, because he's already so much behind the eco. It's 28 against 40, and Overtaken's all-in aggression over here works out really fine. 6 on stone now, and there will be a second TC from Overtaken, so he will open with a 2 TC play, but eventually there is going to be a castle, I can assure you that. And that castle would be pretty nice over here, potentially over here as well. And even though Modri is on 2 TCs, he just starts making Voyagers, and at the end of the day, even though this push didn't actually kill Voyagers, the idle time it forced is just absolutely crazy. Look at this, 7 minutes, 41 seconds. And every 25 seconds you have TC idle time, you lose 1 Voyager. That's how you should be looking at that. So it didn't actually kill Voyagers as it is. What it did was kill Modri's eco and pretty much deny him the ability to build up a strong boom. Whereas if you compare it to Overtaken, he had a completely untouched eco for the majority of the game, even was able to go for the hunt on the outside. And now, as I said, he's getting close to dropping a castle, and I could really see a castle being dropped over here somewhere. Based on what we have seen from him in the previous game, that could be completely viable and a legitimate move from him. Alright, so with that, Overtaken is getting close to having enough stone for a castle. Now Overtaken's food eco is now getting a little bit messier, I would say, but look at this. He's got Boso, he's got 48 Voyagers compared to 12. He's got a Mangonel pushing now, and Modri is going to try and defend with Mangonels and Monks himself, but at this point all Overtaken needs to do is just keep booming, and he should be able to outboom his opponent pretty easily. And there is enough stone now for Overtaken to drop a castle, so we'll soon find out where he's going to drop that. Mangonel trying to take down the Spearman, as Overtaken is hoping to save that stable for now. The castle has been dropped, and indeed, here it comes. It's actually a beautiful castle. It's on a hilltop. It's nearly impossible for Modri to deny, and it's going to deny this gold mine as well. So, it's not a greedy castle in the first place. It's a very, very safe castle overall. And I would like to let you know that Overtaken is still on stone, which means that there will be a second castle eventually, and I would think that second castle is going to be a lot ballsier or something like this. But first it is going to be a couple of Mango Dye that actually secures him a little bit of ground over this pikeman. And then the Mango Dye and the Mangonel push, it should be able to secure him enough ground to drop a castle over here in the face of Modri. Modri is still on 3 TCs, but he's 20 Voyagers behind compared to his opponent, and even though Overtaken is also having a lot of Voyager idle time and messy parts of his eco, like these non-reseeded farms, his push actually is doing more damage to Modri. So, as long as this push actually does more to Modri's eco than what Overtaken loses back at home because of the inefficiency, I think Overtaken is going to be pretty fine with that. And indeed, here comes the Mango Dye, or he will come the Mango Dye pretty soon. And also, Overtaken is going to make sure that Modri doesn't leave his base, which means Modri is going to have no access to gold, by the way. Like, Modri is slowly eating this gold mine up here. There is no gold out here. So the next closest gold mine for Modri to take would be this one, but that's inaccessible right now. So is this one. And all of the other gold mines are also on the right side, so Modri is going to have a very, very tough time getting gold for himself. Once again, in the first game, he also was denied of pretty much all golden. Look at the resource from Overtaken, by the way. Look at that. He is, well, in a position to imp this one. Modri had to invest a lot into his defense, like multiple Mangonels, multiple Monks, and getting Monk techs in. Whereas Overtaken went for a couple of Monks, but remember that his eco was a lot more polished. And if he goes for imp here, I think that's the right play. He could just wait until Imperial, get a trap out, get a couple of Mangudai out, and he should be able to steamroll everything that his opponent has. So he just needs to buy himself up over here. We'll see if he does that. And indeed, here comes the market. So Overtaken knows exactly that all he needs to do now is just buy himself up Imperial. And Modri is just getting his eco back on track. He's still 20 villagers behind now. His food eco is getting more balanced. So that's a good sign. And look at this. He's looking for Modri's villagers. He wants to make sure that Modri... Oh, that was almost a perfect move as well from Overtaken. The villager actually opened the gate. And Overtaken wanted to use the scout to keep the gate open, but that didn't happen. Over there, Modri is dispatching a couple of monks over here to the left. As Overtaken's gonna drop another castle over here. Once again, Gold Denial is the name of the game. That should be a relatively safe castle to go up as well. And indeed, here come the Mangudai, and here comes Imperial Age for Overtaken, who is in a very, very good position to potentially win a second game over here. This castle is something that I'm not a huge fan of, to be honest, but it's going to be safe in terms of... It's going to be very hard for Modri to take this castle down here. So it's actually safe from the perspective of making sure that you can just keep adding Mangudai, and that's something that you want to keep in mind. I was skeptical about the Mongols play here, but it actually seems to work out well for Overtaken. I like the game plan as well. He realized that there is neutral patches of deer, so he can go for an aggressive play and then in the meanwhile compensate his slightly later castle age with a bunch of hunt. And he's also just spamming outposts everywhere, so he knows exactly, look at this. He knows exactly when Modri leaves his base, and what he's doing is just pure resource denial game. Modri is not far away from Imperial either, and he's mining stone, so he wants a castle for himself, but he's gonna be at least 2.5 minutes beaten into Imperial, and he's gonna be up against 2 castles. So even if he gets a castle up over here, and even if he clicks up into Imperial, it seems nearly impossible for Modri to be able to defend that castle against the traps that will be coming from Overtaken. And if Overtaken, as I said, he actually cancelled fletching, but now I think Overtaken needs to start grabbing the upgrades. So he's getting Husbandry, Bloodlines will be coming in soon, and he needs the Blacksmith upgrades. That's the only thing I'm missing for Overtaken here. He could be having Botkin by now. Another castle comes in here. That's a nice castle as well to protect the eco in case there is something sneaky going on still. And Overtaken also seems to be lacking the university for ballistics in an archery range for Tumbling. So those Mangudai aren't really going to be amazing, but they don't even need to be super amazing currently. I think if they have Bloodlines, Husbandry, Botkin, and potentially ballistics, they're going to be fine. And in the meanwhile, as I said, Overtaken is up to Imperial. Modri is up as well. Indeed, 2 minutes differential is basically what we have over here. And here comes a castle. And Overtaken, what he should do is, as Modri cancels that castle right as he sees his opponent is in Imperial, what Overtaken needs to do is indeed cancel the Mangudai and start making traps. And he's going to be well on his way to winning his second game over here. He's 3 theses against 3 theses, and truth being told, Modri caught up in terms of Imperial Age timing, as he will try to go for what seems to be a Halberdier ram push. He kinda has to, but I feel like the time for that is already too late. Mangudais will be out, and by the time he gets into Imperial, by the time he's able to get the rams out, because the Halberdier won't be a problem, the rams will be a problem, and Halberdiers alone against Mangudai will be completely useless. And I think, as I said, there's already Bracer coming in here for Overtaken, and he can start trapping buildings down ASAP. And we also have a Monastery coming in here for him, picking up relics potentially. Look at Overtaken's map presence. He's got a very, very good vision across the map. We can say that he sees almost everything as the trap is being set up. He sees the castle. We'll start tapping it down immediately. Modri is going to queue up some traps as well over here, and this trap fight is going to be crucial for the outcome of the game. The thing is that there is 2 castles against 1 over here, so technically Overtaken could just make 2 more traps and finish this game over here with that. So Overtaken should be winning this trap fight dominantly, although I would have to add indeed that if Modri pulls about 14, 15 villagers, he can keep that castle alive for the time being. But he doesn't really have the villagers right now to repair that castle. That's like 6, 7, 8 villagers, and that castle is slowly going down. If you're Overtaken, you want to add 2 more traps here and you will melt every building. And that's one of the common mistakes that many players do, I think, is that they slow down in terms of adding traps and feel like, okay, 2 traps are enough. 2 traps aren't enough, because 14 Voyagers is still viable to repair a castle, even though obviously your opponent has to commit a lot to that, and it seems like Modri didn't commit 14 wheels to this, and he also runs out of stone, so he knows that castle is gonna go down and taps out. But if Modri had more stone and more Voyagers repairing, he could have actually stalled this push out. And that's the reason why Overtaken should have gone for 2 more trebs, or at least 1 more, but 2 more would have just smashed everything in here. Doesn't really matter, because I feel like at the end of the day, what matters is that Modri's fast castle was completely crippled by this tower rush, mainly in terms of just destroying the food eco and preventing Modri from having any kind of boom. And when Overtaken reached Castle Age, he had a 12 Voyagers lead over Modri. I think that tells the entire story of how bad Modri's eco was. Thanks to the push from Overtaken. Alright, so quick look at the civilizations over here. Slavs are gone for Modri, and Mongols are gone as well. And the next map we're going to play is going to be Gold Rush, which is the final home map of Modri. We'll see what he can do over here. And it seems like we're going to have a pretty typical Meso war over here. Aztecs versus Mayans, two of the best civilizations in this game. Both of them are really good for maps like Gold Rush, for example. And as I said at the beginning, I questioned Modri not sniping the Mayans from Overtaken, and we often see players sniping Mayans from the opponent, but that wasn't the case over here. We had an Ethiopian snipe, and because of that, Overtaken is going to be playing with Mayans here. Now, this is a tricky matchup, because in terms of archers, Aztecs will lose to Mayans. In fact, you shouldn't even attempt going for that. If you are Modri, what you are playing for here, I would say, if you're playing Fast Castle, is Fast Castle potential triple Barracks Eagles. But Aztecs have to play into Eagles here because they will just lose in an archer war against Mayans, and Aztec Eagles will be able to dominate Mayans until Plumed Archers arrive in large numbers, or until Eldorado Eagles arrive. I think Eldorado Eagles are slightly better than Garland Wars Eagles, so that's something that's also worth considering. And it seems like Overtaken is actually laming away 3 sheep from his opponent here. That is enormous. And look at that, that's actually very smart. Splitting up the sheep so that even if Modri finds them, he won't find all of them. And in the meanwhile, Modri loses that eagle to the town center fire. Disaster for Modri, absolute disaster. In the previous games, he wasn't starting with a deficit compared to his opponent, and he still lost. Now he is starting with a deficit, and his situation isn't looking great. He's got no idea what's going on the map, and against an aggressive player like Overtaken, that could be devastating. Losing that scout hurts so much. It looks like it is indeed a fast castle from Modri. He goes for a standard 24+2 with Market Blacksmith. So I wonder what the idea is here for him. And now here comes the barracks. So it's either going to be just the barracks to collect relics with the support of Eagles, or it is going to be a bigger commitment. We'll see. I can see Modri just trying to boom here, or I can see Modri going for a very, very heavy EO play here as well. And it looks like we will have Overtaken going for crossbows, as it is standard. The thing is that, as I said, Mayan crossbows will somewhat struggle against Aztec Eagles, although it depends on numbers as well. So there's the second barracks from Modri. I think I like this a lot more from Modri, to be honest. I think that archer play here isn't really viable for Overtaken, although it also depends on how consistent your unit production is, obviously. But Modri up to Castle Age. Overtaken actually went for a pretty late Castle Age over here, so reaches Castle at 29. Obviously, that's Mayans. So, although Modri is at Loom as well, but still, 29 Voyagers with Mayans and with Loom, obviously, because it's Mayans. It's actually pretty late. Anyways, that's still fine for Overtaken. He's going to be massing crossbows back at home, drops TC number 2. And based on the fact that Modri sees the ranges, I would think that he's gonna get the armor upgrade soon. And he will probably go for a siege workshop. So this is a good situation for Modri. He can get a siege workshop up here, and he can just press on with Eagles, even though I would like to add that his Eagles don't have any upgrades on them, and that could still be problematic, because as good as the Eagles are against the Archers, you kind of need the upgrades for them, otherwise the crossbows will just eat them. So Eagle Scouts, having just 2 Pierce Armor, it's not really sufficient against crossbows. And also Modri is playing 1 TC, double Barracks Eagles, whereas his opponent will be playing 2 TCs. And I also like the fact that the Overtaken is actually walling off his base with double layer walls, so there is reinforcements to these walls to prevent the eagles from running in. And I think that Overtaken might have spotted the siege workshop on that hill. I wonder if Modri just wants to play gold eco denial, because that could be part of the plan as well. There's the mangonel, and he will soon start moving out. For now, Overtaken is playing very, very defensive over here, but that allows him to just outboom Modri here, as Modri is getting villagers out in the middle pretty early on. Modri is low on stone, so I wonder if he actually sold his stone. I think he did. I think he may have done a little bit of a stone styling to go up, because he went for a 24 plus 2 fast castle, but he lost 3 of his sheep, and the only way that the math checks out with that is if you have sold your stone. Anyways, that means that Modri is not going to be able to afford Town Center, even though he could technically buy the stone, he's still low on wood. So he's just going to play with the mining camp over here, and here come the crossbows. The thing is that, as I said, Modri doesn't really have the upgrades on those Eagle Warriors, or Eagle Scouts to be precise. Nice splits over there from Overtaken. So those Eagles will die pretty easily, and they are actually pretty expensive to replace compared to Mayan Archers that are super, super cheap. So this is still a tricky fight for Modri over here. If he gets the upgrades, he's going to be fine. But that is a big, big, big if over there. We have double bid axe only for Overtaken, both so as well for Modri. So Modri's eco is pretty comparable to Overtaken's one, even though, as I said, Overtaken has 2 vultures lead. But I think the army composition is going to be much, much better for Overtaken for Modri, once the upgrades come in for Eagle Warriors. Nice micro over there from Overtaken. In fact, a very, very good micro picking off the Eagles. He tried using his own Eagle to pick off the Mangonel, but that didn't succeed. Modri had a very, very nice job with the repairs. More crossbows on the field though, and Modri once again is missing the upgrades for his Eagles. And it's not like he actually has a good food eco to push on with this one, and oh boy, that's actually hurt things so much. Overtaken has a lot of TC idle time, by the way. I'm not sure why. That's probably because the second TC is idle. But that's some beautiful micro from Overtaken. Took down one Mangonel already, now splits into the second Mangonel shot, but the cost efficiency is probably still there, because, as I said, these are very, very cheap mine archers, so picking off Mangonels like that's actually sort of worth it. And the Eagles here are getting mangoed by their own Mangonel. It hurts so much for Modri, and a lot of those Eagles are now very low HP. And you could make a case for Overtaken adding a couple of Eagles himself to snipe Mangonels like that. And many of those Eagles are very weak. Now Overtaken eats a big hit on his crossbows though. Modri once again mangoing his own Eagles over here, as Monks will try to get conversion on the crossbows, and that's not going to happen as well. So Modri cleans this one up. The problem that Modri is facing is that his opponent's eco is getting better and better. So it's 8 Vultures lead now, and a pretty clean eco, whereas Modri, come on man, you're making double Barracks Eagles, and you also try to make Vultures with 4 on food. 4 on food is not enough for that. Like, 4 on food is not even enough to produce Vultures on your TC, and that TC idle time is going to start showing. So one of the reasons why Overtaken is having a much, much better Vulture count is because he's able to keep his TCs working consistently. Obviously, he also has 2 TCs, which helps, but it's another thing that Modri is just having 1 TC, and he's kind of going Castle Age all in here. I assume that what he's doing is just buying food with all the gold Vultures, which is not really sustainable in the long run, but maybe sustainable short term. Mike gets picked off over there, and I think Overtaken is just waiting for the opponent to pop out 2 Eagles to snipe Mangonels. Here comes another Eagle as well. That's gonna be a tricky one for Modri to hold, and the crossbows will loop all the way around. Eagles died pretty easily over here, so that may have been a little bit of a premature pop by Overtaken, who is on stone with 7 Voyagers. So defensive castle eventually will come in, and it seems like he's going to decide, hey, I'm getting pushed here, I'm just going to send my crossbows to your base and see what you can do to defend. Still, these buildings are slowly crumbling here for Overtaken, and that is sort of a concern for him. He's got 8 on stone, he's got 26 on gold right now, so he's eating gold like a madman. Pretty much just consuming all the gold that he's having inside his base. Sanctity on the way for Modri over here, as the crossbows will hit Modri's base. Nice reaction over there from him, moving away with the Vultures, and the Mangonel is chasing Modri, selling wood and probably buying food as well in quite large quantities. And there is a market coming in for Overtaken. He's still far away from a castle, and he did lose one of the ranges. Now it is 2 Vultures dead, And now Overtaken is going to take that micro fight against the Mangonel. But based on the micro that Overtaken is having, he's actually a pretty good player. As I said, I haven't heard a lot about him, but he seems like a super aggressive player. And it currently seems like he's having the upper hand in this game, because even though this Mangonel push looks scary, one of the things that stalls out the Mangonel push is a castle, and we should add the fact that now it is 64 villagers compared to 36. That's brutal. So, yeah, once again, the problem for Modri is gonna be that his eco is going to be like absolute junk. And Plumed Archers could come in now for Overtaken. Plumed Archers in good numbers will also be pretty decent against Eagles, which helps a lot. And Overtaken might even be able to get through these walls before the Mangonel shows up. Nice splits over here from him. Once again, Mangonel down to 30 HP. Another sign, Modri might not know about that castle. No, he knows about the castle, but he also knows that he's not going to be able to push this one no matter what. He's bringing back the Eagles to clean this one up, but every moment that Modri is delaying that push, as I'm not sure, did that Mangonel just get picked off by the crossbows, or did Modri try the delete trick? I really don't know. Eagles still just +1 defense over here, and even though there is 30 army for Modri, the quality of this army is absolute junk. Like, this is pretty much feudal age army, if you think about that. And the Castle Age army will beat Feudal Age army. You can see how these Eagles die to the crossbows. If there was a +2 defense, if there was an Eagle Warrior upgrade, this would be a completely different fight. And holy smokes, we have Imperial Age coming in here for Overtaken, who's also dispatching another group of crossbows to the other side of the map. Look at this. 4 crossbows still alive here, and these crossbows will be heading all the way to the other side with the woodlines, and they don't even have ballistics. Now it is Plumed Archers, and I think Overtaken wants another castle somewhere, preferably somewhere here on this ridge, because he wants to secure that for himself for gold mining. Crossbows, once again, denying this re-walling, or at least delaying it a tiny bit, but I think the only thing I'm missing for Overtaken is ballistics, and also eco upgrades are pretty bad overall for him. But still, it's 68 eco against 36. Modri is actually going to imp this one, believe it or not. Modri is going to try to imp this one with 36 Vultures, which is crazy. That's very, very crazy that his 36 Vultures imp. Anyways, the second castle comes in here for Overtaken, who is just massing Plumed Archers right now and probably preparing for one big breakout. And more importantly, he is going to be arriving over here on this side with a couple of crossbows. As I said, these crossbows are missing ballistics and thumb ring, and it hurts so badly. If these was crossbows with ballistics, you would be killing those Voyagers. Right now, you're just scaring them away. And now the Eagles will probably come in here as well. Modri is on stone with 4, but that's gonna be a lot less Voyagers very soon. And I like this move from Overtaken. He moves up close before actually taking this, although he's not focusing down Voyagers, which means that he only is going to kill 2. He could have maybe killed a little more, or if he had ballistics, but that's once again 2 Voyagers down for Modri, and he's down to 34. That's double the eco right now for Overtaken. And Bracer will come in for the Plumed here. Modri will try to play this one with Eagles, finally coming in with the +2 defense, but +2 defense will once again be obsolete once your opponent has Bracers, so that's once again a little too late. Mangonels trying to get the picks on the Plumed Archers. Plumed Archers with Bracer will actually have the same range as Mangonels, so they should be able to take that fight if they want to, even though I'm not sure if that's going to be worth it. And now I think Overtaken is trying to drag this army out here and then try to get a castle up somewhere on the ridge. That's so many Voyagers, and that's actually a very, very bad castle for Overtaken. That's an awful castle. But what this does for him is that this is a guaranteed, well, not really guaranteed, but this is a castle that is likely to go up, especially with Modri microing his units over here. Overtaken is having some sick micro over here, juking all those rocks. And as I said, Modri is not paying attention, which means a castle here will go up. And what this castle gives you is safety to get a castle up over here and secure that gold mine. And if you take a look at Overtaken's stone mining, he also isn't thinking that this castle is going to be enough to protect him on the gold. What he wants is another castle here to secure the gold for himself, and now Plumed Archers are coming in. Still without ballistics is Overtaken though, which is now very, very tilting. Now ballistics on the way for him. Modri still has quite a lot of egos out there, but what actually concerns me for Modri's position is that after 33 minutes, he's got 33 Voyagers, which is obviously far from ideal. Plumed Archers once again could be hitting the stone mine. Now it's going to be +4 defense though for Modri, but he's still just having Eagle Scouts. I guess he wants to go for one big Eagle Warrior push, and that could still be scary for Overtaken, because in terms of army numbers, Modri has 2 to 1 in, and those units will be melting Plumed Archers as well. And if this many Eagles run into your eco with like Eagle Warrior and Elite upgrade, they could kill 20 Voyagers in 5 seconds, and suddenly you could find yourself having an even eco to your opponent. But the Plumed Archers will break through the walls here, and this means that Modri's gonna have to run back to his own base with everything he has. Modri, look at this! He's actually sending all his Voyagers to the middle. This is Modri's entire base, and now there's going to be a castle up over here on this hill. This should give an uphill advantage for Modri. However, if Overtaken sees that, he can actually start making traps on 2 castles, which sort of compensates for this. And in the meanwhile, Plumed Archers from the other side could actually intercept these Voyagers. Military numbers are still looking better for Modri. Overtaken, unaware of that castle right now, he will soon find it, I believe. Once that goes up, he should be able to find it. As Modri is still playing Eagle Scouts for whatever reason. He never went for Eagle Warrior upgrade. Now at least he has +4 defense, but it's still Eagle Scouts. And look at this. They still die. Eagle Warriors would have 1 extra Pierce Armor, and that helps you so much over here. I mean, they will clean up these Plumed Archers, but look at this in the other side of the map. Modri is down to 25 Voyagers, and his TC is isolated from the rest of his Voyagers. So technically, he's unable to send Voyagers over here, as he's trying to convert the Plumed Archers, gets 1 conversion in there, but loses a couple of monks in exchange. And these Plumed Archers are just running around and being annoying over here as much as possible. Modri's at 49 pop, his opponent is 107, and I thought it's gonna be 4-1 for Modri, but it seems like the all-in plays in the first 2 games actually crippled Modri really badly, and this game was much more passive from Overtaken, so the first 2 games were pretty much all-in-like. This one was a lot more passive, and I think now Modri was the one trying the all-in, but that didn't actually happen at the end of the day, because he was just pretty much unable to do that all-in push. His eco was weak behind that one. Tried to go for a lot of egos, but the defensive castle actually stopped the egos and mangonas, and now it's, as I said, double castles, which means that even though you're fighting up hills, you will have better trap numbers, and that actually matters a lot here for Overtaken. Also, it matters that he is a lot more Voyagers than his opponent, so 84 versus 23 Voyagers. 23 villas. So the thing is that 24 Voyagers is barely enough to sustain anything. So replacing traps is going to be awfully hard for Modri. Modri has pretty much all of his Voyagers on gold. And behind this one, his opponent doesn't really have access to a lot of gold, but there is a bit of a gold that's available for Overtaken, and that's the thing. He still has 10 Voyagers on gold. And as I said, I don't think that Modri can actually hold this one for long. That's the problem that he's facing. Now it's Eagle War. No, it's still Eagle Scouts. What? Modri's playing no Eagle Warrior challenge or what? Now it's 3 traps out, but as I said, replacing every lost trap is going to be extremely expensive for Modri over here. The castle is slowly going down here from Overtaken, but 1 trap goes down, and as I said, Modri doesn't have wood eco, so he needs to buy wood, but that also helps Overtaken. The thing is that Modri is playing for starving his opponent out of gold. But if you're forced to buy resources because you don't have starting eco back at home, you won't be able to starve your opponent out of resources, because you would think that the market prices will go down because your opponent is your opponent is selling resources, so the market prices should go down. But since you're buying resources yourself, you will just once again increase market prices and make it a lot more sustainable for your opponent. And Modri now taps out, wishes good luck to Overtaken in the next one. And I think one of the bigger surprises of the first round, Overtaken 3-0ing Modri over here in what was a crazy series overall in terms of how the games shaped out. And I think that the scoreline doesn't actually tell how good this series was, because this is a good series. There was a lot of crazy games, aggressive games. Modri was on the back foot for the majority of the games, but nonetheless, this was a rather competitive series. And I have to say that Modri losing 3-0 over here is a bit of a surprise for me. Especially because I don't really know who this Overtaken guy is, but he seems quite dangerous. He's an aggressive player. Doesn't really have a very perfect macro. In fact, his macro is definitely something he needs to work on, but his micro is pretty good, and he's one of those players that can be very dangerous if the game is short. So in long games, I think he could have trouble because of the lack of macro from him. However, in short games, he's very good with the Archer micro, has a very, very good map awareness, so he's really able to determine where to go and hit resources. So he is really one of the players that likes to commit to early pushes, and he's going to be a dangerous opponent for whoever faces him in the next round. Modri, unfortunately for him, it looks like this map pool wasn't really suitable for his skill set, so he may just go back to Arena to stomp some expert players on Arena because, as I said, Modri is an amazing Arena player, but when it comes to other maps, he seems like he is not ready yet for those. But there are players that started from Arena and has become extremely good players. Back in the days, Winchester was very heavy on Arena as well. Now he's one of the best random map players out there. So maybe in half a year or so, we're going to see Modri stomping people on Arabia as well. For now, it seems like he will be overtaken, and that means that Overtaken advanced to the next round. Modri leaves the tournament with a 3-0 outing over here.